Hello, my brothers and sisters. I greet you, as per usual, with peace and blessings. Today's conversation is going to be about what I have now categorized as my favorite book. Um, anyways, before we jump in, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Share this with someone who enjoys reading. Share this with someone who enjoys music, in particularly gospel music, and share this with all of your fellow Richard Smallwood friends. Yes, friends and fans who have read Richard Smallwood's Total Praise, the autobiography, or who have not. So this is just going to be my review on what I now consider to be my favorite book of all time. I must say that Richard Smallwood definitely, when he wrote this, it was go big or go home, because this book is 521 pages. 521 pages, and it was so good. Never in my life did I ever think that I was going to read a 520 plus page book in 10 days. But I did it. This book really made me feel as if I was sitting down with Richard Smallwood in his living room. Because my living room here got a lot of stuff. And then the house I'm moving to, the house ain't done. So we would have to be in his living room, sitting in his living room, having a conversation about his life, about his upbringing, and the different trials and tribulations that he went through. Very interesting. After reading the book, I really felt like I have a lot of similarities with Richard Smallwood. So I did not write anything out. This is going to be completely off the cuff about this book and why this book means so much to me. So first off, as you know, Richard Smallwood and I'll talk a little bit about our similarities. We both were piano majors in college. I went to Winthrop University. He went to Howard University. And he talked about during his time at Howard, Richard Smallwood went to Howard in the early to mid 70s, more so the mid 70s. And at Howard and at a lot of different HBCUs around the country, up until really the mid 70s, mid to late 70s, classical music was the main absolute 100% focus. So much of a focus that if you were caught playing blues, jazz, gospel. If you were even caught playing this type of music, you could be potentially put up for expulsion. Which, me, I went to college in 2011. That, of course, was not the case, and of course, I went to PWI in the South. But of course, times are different. I don't know how it was back then. I'm sure, well, first off, when Richard Smallwood went to Howard, we went to college at the time, was an all women's school. They had just integrated in 68. Was that 68 or 64? I think Winthrop integrated, in 64. And by about 74 was when men started to go to the school. So I'm sure people in the music department probably wasn't even playing no jazz or no blues or no gospel or anything as such. But something else that I also found to be unique is that one of Richard Smallwood's favorite composers of all time was someone that he did not really care for in the beginning when he first started studying his music, but eventually fell in love with, is Johann Sebastian Bach. Bach is one of my favorite composers, especially Bach's organ music. I love listening to Bach's organ music. You should definitely check it out if you haven't. It's if you're old school kind of guy like me, you love, especially when I worked in church music, I really enjoy high church. Bach preludes and fugues, would be perfect places, perfect for preludes and postludes, for especially certain services, not every Sunday, but yes. And his second favorite, not his second favorite, but another composer that he really yeah, to the classical composers who shaped my writing. And it makes sense when you listen to Richard Smallwood play. He cited a video that's here on YouTube that I used to listen to in high school, him playing It Is Well and Come Ye Disconsolate. He was playing this. I forgot what the event was for. And I remember when I would listen to it in high school, I remember this woman screaming out. And this woman was his mother. And he talked about that moment. It was just so... I got chills because I would watch this video a lot in high school. It was a live performance. And I remember years later, because I actually came back to that video before I got to that section of the book a few weeks ago in the gym, and listened to it. But I remember I kind of took a hiatus. I want to say sometime in like late college, I listened to it again, and I looked in the comment section and learned that that was his mother. And that was not too long before her health really started to decline, and she eventually passed away. But anyways, the other composer is Sergei Rachmaninoff. And one of my closest humans, Brianna Robinson, that is her favorite, one of her favorite composers, especially for piano repertoire, is Rachmaninoff. Rachmaninoff's music is crazy. Check out his Prelude in C sharp minor. If you are not a music person, just type in Rachmaninoff. If I remember to put it in the comment section today when I edit it today. Rachmaninoff, Rachmaninoff. Type it in. Rachmaninoff Prelude in C sharp minor. Oh my goodness, one of his best pieces of music. But if you listen to Rachmaninoff and Bach, and you listen to Richard Smallwood, you can tell that those composers played a big role in Richard Smallwood's musical development. Musicians, y'all get me. Y'all other regular people, whatever. I'm just kidding. Overall, I don't want this video to be too long. I would just say that Richard Smallwood, after reading this book, like I said, really had profound, even more of a profound impact on me. He talked a lot about his upbringing and his relationship with his parents. I'm not going to give away too much information when it comes down to his parents, because I really recommend, music person or not, read this book. It is so good. But Richard Smallwood's father, stepfather, was a very abusive man. A man who appeared to have been, my understanding of him is that he was a toxic tyrant. And he really put Richard through a lot of turmoil throughout his life. His father was, I want to say, close to 50 years older than him, or right at 50 years older than him, because I believe Richard Smallwood was born in 1948 and his father was born in 1898. So I think they had a 50-year age gap, which is interesting because that's the age gap I have with my grandmother. So, but that's neither here nor there, because there were age gaps back in those days, and I could have a baby at 50. But anyways, that's not what we're here for. So he talked a lot about how his father was very abusive. And his father would just kind of out of nowhere just beat him for what appeared to have been no reason. That was Richard Smallwood's experience. Of course, I believe in his father's mind there had to have been a reason. And when Richard said no reason, I really could understand that, because it's like, well, like, what is it? Like, I'm just sitting over here chilling and all of a sudden you just punching me. He talked about how his father was, and this really stuck out to me, because I was like, that's just crazy. His father was looking, I believe, through a photo album, and Richard Smallwood was standing next to his dad, looking over his shoulder, and saw a photo of Richard. I think he had to have been maybe a year or two, probably 2 years old, crying. And his father made a comment along the lines of, he hated that face or something, that facial expression. And Richard was like, well, why, Daddy? Like, well, like, what's going on here? I was just, I'm sure I was just fussing about something, probably need a diaper change or something. And long story short, his father, Reverend Smallwood, ended up like just beating him. And at this point in time, Richard Smallwood had to have been a teenager in his early teens. And his father literally just started beating him. See, stuff like that is like what I would say. I understand, oh yeah, that's just no reason. Like, why would you do that? And when he finally was able to get up off of the floor and ran into the bathroom and locked the door, the father came beating on the door. And when he left the house, he just casually came back with some ice cream and like offered Richard some ice cream. Like as if this abusive connection did not just happen. Sounds narcissistic and sounds kind of psychopath to me. But it's very sad, and I really feel bad that he actually went through stuff like that with Reverend Smallwood. His mother, Mabel Ruth Locklear, was born in Durham, North Carolina on January 12, 1915, to Richard and Nellie Weaver Locklear. He literally starts his autobiography with explaining his mother and her roots. And he really had a very, very strong, had and probably still has, even though she is physically deceased. I'm sure they still have a strong bond. But the book, he says, this book is lovingly dedicated to the memory of my mother, Mabel Ruth Locklear Smallwood. And he really loved his mom. Had a very, very close connection with his mom. Now, on the first page of the book, y'all, literally on the first page, he's talking about Durham, the family connection of Durham, North Carolina. Her father, I believe that's his grandfather, James Frederick Kane. It's all these people, his ancestors, named Kane. So I'm reading this, mind you now, I am reading my books in the chronological order that I purchased them. And another book that I had, jeez, I just dropped my favorite book. Forgive me, Richard Smallwood. The book that I had literally just finished, like literally like the day before, was My Folks Don't Want Me to Talk About Slavery, which was edited by Belinda Hermits. And so I'm reading the book, didn't think anything of it. Canes in Durham, North Carolina. Or people connected to the Canes in Durham, North Carolina. And so yeah, I'm just going through the book. Finally, I'm like at page, I had to have been close to like 500. It had to have been like close to 500. And, or wait a minute, it was right before 500. I think I just found the page. Wow, I did. Yeah, hold on. Yep, I just literally found the page 490. And he's talking about his family connection. So basically what happened was in chapter 42, he ended up, because I'm kind of like all over the place, y'all. Anyways, he ended up going down to Durham and found the family home. Family home was on the market, and he was able to connect with the realtor who had it listed. And the realtor gave him a tour. And, you know, he was able to experience physically being on some family land and living in a home. I'm not living in, but visiting the home that his family had lived in decades before he existed. But here he says, former slave Miss Sarah, who was kept in the big house and who was interviewed at the age of 85, stated that Mars Kane owned so many niggers that he didn't know his own slaves when he met them in the road. She went on to say that Doc Kane was good to his slaves and never beat them, but if they were insubordinate, he would sell them. I couldn't imagine what it must have been like to live in that time as a black man. You and me both. Um, that was interesting because I was like, when I was reading, I was like, hold up, wait a minute. Let me get about this bed. Because I think I was laying down at that point. Got about the bed, and I was like, that sounds a little bit too familiar. So here I am, and I go to page 55. Because at first, like, I saw the name Sarah, and I'm like, okay, Sarah. And then I go to the table of contents. Well, Jesus, there are 2 Sarahs here. Or is it 3? I can't. There's 2 Sarahs. And I saw Sarah Deborah. So I kept going up and down the page when I saw Sarah Deborah. And literally, how ironic is it that I purchased this book. And in this book, one of Richard Smallwood's ancestors is interviewed for this book. And I purchased them back to back 2 years ago. And they both sat on my bookshelf for 2 years. And when I finally read them, I'm reading them back to back, and I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. Wow. So, Sarah Deborah was born in Orange County sometime in the 1850s. Miss Polly White Kane and Dr. Kane was my white folks. Mars Kane's plantation joined Mr. Paul Cameron's land. Mars Kane owned so many niggers that he didn't know his own slaves when he met them in the road. Literally, this is how she starts her interview. Sometimes he would stop them and say, "Whose niggers are you?" Then they'd say, "We's Mars Kane's niggers." Then he would say, "I's Mars Kane," and drive on. Like, he had so many people that he owned that he would see them in the road and wouldn't even know who they were. Mars Kane was good to his niggers. He didn't whip them like some owners did, but if they had done mean, he sold them. I mean, like, literally, it's literally right here. And I'm just like, wow, that is just mind-blowing. I had also filmed a video just briefly talking about this book, and just like literally just briefly talking about it, because this book has this is very good. I highly recommend this one too. But I ended up filming that video before I got to chapter 47, where he actually talks about the interview that's in here, Small World. And it's interesting how the universe was aligning me for this very moment over 2 years ago. And I'm grateful because I literally bought this book right when he published it. So right at 2 years ago, because it was published in Columbia, January 12th, 2020. So I literally had purchased it fresh off the printer, nice and new. Anyways, so very, 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 very interesting stuff. He definitely has had some battles. Richard Smallwood, especially as he went into his adulthood, was someone who struggled with depression. And for him to be a black man in America and to write about his depression and how dark it got, and to publish it in a book, I salute you. Richard Smallwood, when you see this video, just know I salute you. I salute you for being able to be that strong, to publicly talk about something like depression. Because it is something, and not just Richard Smallwood, it is something these past few years, which is so common. Most people deal with some form of depression. I dealt with it, had a very, 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 very rough time my junior year in college. It was very, very dark. And me going through that, before that had happened, I didn't understand what people would go through when they would talk about they were depressed. But I went through it, and even though it was very dark, it was very, very tough, I'm grateful for it, because I'm able to understand where people are coming from and what they're going through. So I salute you, Richard Smallwood, for the strength and the courage to write about that. he talked about just kind of at this point now going through kind of randomly. Also, I talked about Bach and Rachmaninoff. He also loved Chopin. He had a very, very, very strong love, had and still has a very strong love for classical music. He kind of grew up nomadic in a way. He traveled a lot because, well, traveled a lot, moved a lot because his father, stepfather, Reverend Smallwood, was establishing various churches around the country, and some of these churches, or up and down the East Coast more so, some of these churches are still existing today, from Atlanta to Washington, D.C. Some of these churches are still existing and thriving today. But Reverend Smallwood definitely had a very, very bad reputation. Unfortunately, sexually, when it came down to younger women that, Richard Smallwood didn't find about until later on in his life. Now, I'm going to tell y'all something that Richard Smallwood has that I don't have. I would love to have it, but God didn't give me that gift. He gave me some other gifts. But Richard Smallwood has perfect pitch. If you go to a piano and play a G, he's going to know that's a G. If you go and you play some type of tall chord, he's going to know what that is. And what a tall chord is that, in music, you have your 1, 3, and 5. That is basically your triad chord. When you add the 7th scale degree, it is a 4-note chord. Anytime you add what is a 9th, 11th, or 13th, that is considered a tall chord. So you could play all kinds of tall chords with diminishes and flats and sharps and this and that and missing keys, and this man probably will tell you every note. Not tell you, this man will tell you every note that is in the chord that you have played. Some of Richard Smallwood's music that I absolutely adore, of course, is Total Praise, and I have had the opportunity to be able to teach that song many times, and I've played it many times for many church services, many funerals, and whatnot. Don't really play it for weddings, but maybe I will one day. And another one is Center of My Joy. He talked about Center of My Joy. And when his mother was in the process of physically transitioning and spiritually transitioning into death, she did also make a spiritual transition. He talked about how he sang Center of My Joy to her, and how while he was singing it, he forgot the verses. He just kept singing, Jesus, you're the center of my joy, so on and so forth. I ain't gonna sing that because I'm not Richard Smallwood. But anyways, that was just so powerful to me. I didn't cry or anything, but that was a very emotional part of the book when he talked about how, the woman that is literally his best friend, how she passed. And it just took me back to 2015 when my god brother passed away, and I sang that as the morticians were opening his casket at the end of the service. It just took me back to that. I'll never forget that moment, and then reading that took me to that point when JT passed. It was just so interesting to have a book that I just had so many connections to. I talked a little bit about his time at Howard. He was a piano major like me. I was a piano major like him. He was also a voice minor. I took up voice as a secondary instrument. He talked about his classes, music history, sight singing and ear training, which we call oral skills at Winthrop. He talked about music theory, which I love me some music theory. Talked about his relationship with his piano professor and how his professor used to fuss at him sometimes. I used to get that too. My piano professor would fuss at me for some sloppy work, but through that, he was definitely someone who inspired me as well. I have to listen to his CD one of these days that he gave me back in 2014 when he went on sabbatical. But anyways, I'm gonna probably cut it short right here. He talked about he talked about different people that he looked up to and the relationships he had. He talked about eventually meeting people like oh gosh, what's the name? Aretha Franklin, Aretha Franklin and Shaka Khan. He talked about how he walked to Aretha Franklin's funeral and was honored to be able to play, I believe, Total Praise at the beginning of her funeral. And let me tell you something, especially musicians would understand this. It is an honor to play for certain events. Certain events, it is truly a big honor. If you have someone who has inspired you musically, and they would request for you to play for a birthday party or a retirement or some type of engagement as such, that's a huge honor. But to play for like their wedding, that is huge. But to play when you have been asked or have been blessed with the opportunity to play for someone who has inspired you musically, to play for their homegoing celebration, for their funeral or something. I know it may sound morbid, but it is something that is just so beautiful. I've had it happen twice in my life. Back in 2018, when the woman who inspired me a lot when it came down to going into church music, the late, great Alonia Brown Jones. And Miss Jones passed away, unfortunately, after a short battle with pancreatic cancer. And July 20th, 2018. That following Friday was her wake, and I walked in and was blessed. Her wake was actually at, she was the minister of music at St. John Reformed Episcopal Church. I just uploaded an interview with Reverend Willie J. Hill, who is the pastor there. And that's where her wake and funeral was. And I was blessed and honored to be able to play and sing for Miss Jones's wake. And then my piano teacher, who I studied with for many years, Phyllis Ann Pender. I studied piano with her from elementary through high school. Miss Pender was a cancer survivor before I was born. And unfortunately, in 2020, literally right when everything shut down, the cancer came back and she passed in May. And I played for her memorial service. And what an honor. What an honor to be able to play for the two women that inspired me the most musically. The two women that inspired me the most musically, Miss Jones and Miss Pender. So although Aretha Franklin was not like his piano teacher, Aretha Franklin was definitely somebody who inspired him musically. He talks about on page 202, I had graduated and my dream was to go to Juilliard School of Music in New York for my master's. Mine was too, but I ended up staying in Rock Hill. And I went to Winthrop for my master's. But hey, I am very grateful that I stayed in Rock Hill. Because Rock Hill is a very nice place to be. It really is. I love it here. I love it here. Richard Smallwood is someone who definitely loves and appreciates hymns. He is someone that that is something else that we have in common, is our love for hymns. And Richard Smallwood was also one of the founders and directors of one of the earlier groups, gospel groups at Howard University, of course, which was established in the 70s. Hey, yo, he got some pictures. I hope this ain't illegal. Look at him when he was a kid. I gotta show y'all his mom. she is, no disrespect to you, Richard Smallwood, but your mom was a very beautiful woman, and I don't mean that in a sexual way or anything. She just was very, very much a beautiful woman. But here he is with Aretha Franklin, and this is his stepfather, the Reverend C.L. Smallwood. And I don't know. I just think pictures of people when they're kids is quite hilarious. This is his mother, Mabel. Actually, this is her when she was a baby. And then this is Richard Smallwood's mother, Mabel. Yeah, after reading the book, it just seemed like he's a really cool guy. Really cool guy. He talks about his record deals, and talked about how Total Praise came about. Another song that I like is Anthem of Praise. Praise him at the temple and praise him when the heavens sing. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful music. So anyways, we have gone over 30 minutes. Long story short, I was able to share with you guys what has become my favorite book. And the best 10 days of 2021 was reading this book. Thank you so much, Richard Smallwood, for your artistry with writing this book, but then also your musical artistry. I'm talking as if Richard Smallwood gonna see this video. I hope he does. He followed me on Instagram. I was starstruck. I was like, Richard Smallwood followed me on Instagram. Oh my gosh! He followed me on Instagram, like while I was reading the book. While I was reading this book, and what was crazy was that once again, the way God aligns things is crazy. Richard Smallwood had actually posted this picture on his Instagram page. And I commented on it. And it was crazy because I was literally on that page when I saw he had posted it a few minutes prior. I'm like, what in the world? But thank you so much for this wonderful book. Yeah, so folks, like I said, if you are a music person, check it out. Check it out. If you listen to any of his music, if any of his music has impacted you in any way, shape, or form, whether you believe it or not, Total Praise. There's going to be something in this book that is going to be inspiring in some way, shape, or form. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. If you have read the book, let me know. Put it in the comment section. If it's on your bookshelf that you bought back in 2020 or 2021 and you are planning on reading it, when you do read it, let me know. But of course, if you have the book, even just still drop that comment. But this was a book that was very, very, very encouraging. Very encouraging. And then that's just that on that. So y'all be easy. Y'all be blessed. Y'all be encouraged. And just remember, Total Praise. And that's that on that. So I will see y'all later. Like I said, like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. I am out. Peace and blessings.